Ticked. All right, we got the microphone. Check. All right, our mic is going, and we are live. We are live. I'm gonna give it some time. I'm gonna let it run a little bit. Give time for folks to get in if they are going to be watching this program. And welcome to Elite Weather. My name is Mr. G. I am your meteorologist today, and I'm your meteorologist every day on this channel. And we are going to be talking about that weather forecast coming up. And I'm missing my phone. Be right back. I need my phone. I want to be able to see if it's on Facebook. All right. I am back, everybody. And I'm going to give it a few minutes, give it time for people, if they want to watch, to jump in there. And we're going to run through this weather forecast. And we're going to talk about the hurricane, possibly, that is going to hit Florida. We're going to be talking about the cooler weather and the big changes that's been taking place over this weekend and the front that's been cooling things down across the eastern half of the nation. So we're going to take a look at this first week or this last week of September. The first starts on Saturday. So upcoming Saturday is going to be October 1st. We will have a long range forecast that we're going to talk about. We're going to take a look at what the climate situation could look like this fall. So we're going to do that at the end of the forecast there. So if we're still on, we'll check that out, okay? And let's make sure that we are rocking and rolling. Let's make sure that we are I'm assuming, okay, I'm seeing it. I do see it on Facebook now. It's kind of weird because Facebook still asks me to go live, even though it's already being fed in. So anyway, we are live on Facebook, and I do see it there. And let's make sure that we're up and running on YouTube. Make sure we are on YouTube. Go to my channel. And looks like we are interesting. Okay, we are live on YouTube. Okay, so the live is going. It shows one person, which is probably me. So that's that how that goes. YouTube now live. All right, looking good there. All right. Okay, so we do have a live going. I want to give some time for folks to get involved if we want to participate and watch. It was supposed to start at 3. I have a problem with starting on time because I'm not quite sure on how to set all of this up. So we do want this to be on full screen as well. Oh, it shows me how many people are watching. It shows one watching. So that's interesting. So I'm gonna close my phone there. All right, so how do I make this? No. Yeah, we want full screen layout. Full screen. Please go to full screen layout. I guess it's not. So anyway, all right. So we're gonna have your weather today. All right, we're gonna get going here. So, welcome to your weather today. My name is Mr. G. I'm your meteorologist, and we have a lot going on in the weather right now across America. It's very cool. We're seeing a lot of fall type weather out there. So autumn is certainly right on cue with those cooler temperatures. We're seeing cooler temperatures across the Great Lakes, the Central Plains, the Northern Plains, the Northern Rockies. It's a little bit warmer toward the rest. We're seeing it warm up toward the Pacific Northwest, and on the West Coast is slightly warmer. We are seeing those temperatures in the 70s and 80s out to the west, and we're seeing it. But we're seeing things cool down to the east because behind our front, we have a very strong cold front moving through the eastern third of the nation right now. And we're going to take a look at some of those things, and we're going to dive in and take a look at our current radar. And as you can see in the northeast there and in the Great Lakes, there's a lot of precipitation right now. There's a lot of cold air in place, cooler conditions. And in the Great Lakes here, what we're seeing is wraparound airflow. So we're in the airflow coming down out of Canada behind our front. It is that cooler air that we're seeing these spotty looking showers like this. You see these spotty showers in the cool air of the afternoon. What warmth is there is being lifted up because it's being lifted up by that cool air that's heavier. That colder air is more dense and heavy, and that warmer air is being lifted up, and then it is cooled as it lifts, forming clouds. So we're going to see a lot of puffy cumulus clouds out there in portions of Minnesota, as well as Wisconsin and Michigan here. Here is where our area of low pressure is across Quebec and southern Canada here. We have Montreal and Toronto and Quebec City right in this region. All right, our area of low pressure is here, so we are seeing that rainfall there. Here is our front going across the southeast. Our frontal boundary, we do have spotty showers and thunderstorms along our front here, and we have this moisture down here over Florida and over the Florida Straits, this area is called, and that is from our hurricane, our tropical storm Ian, that's down to the southwest of Cuba right now. So tropical storm Ian is out there, and we're getting some outflow bands here, and it's going to spread some rainfall across the Bahamas and South Florida. We have a few monsoon storms possible this afternoon across southern New Mexico and southeastern Arizona, where we could see some monsoon moisture in place there as well. It's going to start to cool off across the state of Texas as well, as our front is currently halfway dissecting the state of Texas this afternoon. So here we are as we take a look at our satellite. You see all this how white, how kind of hazy this looks. This is that cooler air. We have our cold core low area of low pressure here is a close low with a cold core. So we're seeing a lot of low level clouds. Yesterday in Minnesota, we saw a lot of those stratocumulus clouds, very low hanging clouds with very light showery weather. It was breezy from the north, very cold northerly wind, and these scattered breezy, these little showers that kept passing through. It would rain just enough to make things wet and kind of miserable for all you folks out there. So we're seeing that again today through portions of Wisconsin and Michigan. It's drying out across Minnesota. Beautiful day in Minnesota. Beautiful. Wonderful temperatures. A little bit breezy with that northerly wind, but the sun and the skies are crisp blue because everything has just been cleared out. All of that moisture, very low humidity, low dew points as well. So in the mornings, if it's clear overnight and your car is parked outside, you will have issue with dew on your car in the mornings this week, especially in the first couple of days of this week. We might see a 70 pop in later in this weekend across portions of Minnesota. we could see a 70 pop up. But for the most part, we're going to see those 60s, and we're going to see a secondary front drop down out of Canada and put a reinforcing shot of cooler air. So it's going to drop back into the 50s for daytime highs by next weekend. So that is a look at for what we have for Minnesota. But we have a ridge of high pressure out west. So skies out west are mostly clear. There is a few snowflakes out here, and we've seen some snow across the Rockies here into British Columbia, but we are seeing dry conditions for the United States here. A few clouds across Idaho and southwestern Montana. There might be some showers and thunderstorms embedded in that area, as there is a very weak trough of low pressure elongated along this axis right here that is responsible for a few showers and maybe some snowflakes up in the higher terrain of the mountains. So that is a look at our current satellite. Here are current temperatures across America right now. And again, we're looking at that cooler weather in the Great Lakes. You see that 57 there for Sault Ste. Marie in the upper peninsula of Michigan. Sault Ste. Marie is right there. 57, 56 over here in Detroit. We see the 61 in Green Bay, 63 over here in Duluth, 67 in Minneapolis, 57 up there at Embarrass, Minnesota, 64 in Grand Forks, 63 in Minot, 70 down here in Aberdeen, 68 in Sioux Falls. So very nice weather across the very cool, comfortable temperatures. Light sweater weather across the Great Lakes and the Northern Plains. And we're also seeing those cool temperatures in the 50s, 60s, a little bit warm along the coast, the 70s, because the coastal section have the Gulf Stream. So they see that southerly flow, that southerly current along the Atlantic coast. So it keeps things a little bit warmer right along the coast. So we're seeing that 70 for New York City, 72 in Philadelphia, 73 in the DC area. But it is warm along the Gulf Coast. We have those warmer temperatures, 89 in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, 85 in Tampa, 88 right now in Jackson City. Oh, Jacksonville, 86 in New Orleans. So we're seeing those temperatures in the 80s in Mississippi, lower 90s in portions of Shreveport, Louisiana, 92 in Dallas, Fort Worth, 91 right now in San Antonio, 92 in Houston. We're seeing it 94 right now in Phoenix, 68 in Flagstaff, 82 in LA, 72 in San Diego. So we're also seeing some lower 90s, upper 80s in through the desert Southwest. But look at those Pacific Northwest temperatures in the 60s. 64 in Seattle, 67 in Portland. We're seeing very nice weather, seasonal temperatures across the Pacific Northwest. We're seeing those 70s through the lower Rockies and the high terrain, the plateau areas of Colorado and northern New Mexico, above I-40 and below I-70. So that I-40, the I-70 corridor, where we have the high plateaus and the mesas there, Zion National Park, Dinosaur National Monument, at Arches National Park. So our national park region here through Colorado, Glenwood Springs, and also in Utah. This is my favorite place. These are my favorite places. I absolutely love this part of the country: Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. We're not gonna forget Southern California, because California is beautiful as well. The Sierra Nevadas, beautiful. Yosemite, and then you got the Lassen Volcanic. You have all the Redwood, Sequoia National Park in Northern California. Then here in the Columbia River Gorge here through Oregon, Washington. Don't forget so you have a beautiful, I love the Western states. So the Western states is having great weather to visit the national parks right now. We're not seeing much in the way of monsoon storms, and we're not seeing much in the way of any snow right now. Everything is calm. High pressure is in full control. So beautiful weather to visit the national parks out west right now. All right, so let's take a look at our forecasted highs. 99 in Vegas, 102 in Phoenix. So we're seeing it hot across the desert Southwest. 90 in LA. We have that offshore flow, so we're seeing those Santa Ana winds blowing through the canyons and passes of Southern California, making the LA basin a bit warm right now. So we are seeing a weak offshore flow across the desert Southwest. We're seeing those temperatures expected to rise into the 70s across the Northwest through Cut Bank there into towards Seattle, where we're expecting a high of 72 degrees today. And we're seeing those nice cool temperatures in the Great Lakes region and the Northern Plains. We're going to see it warm into the 70s today. But Minneapolis, you're going to stay in the 60s, the upper 50s near the Canadian border. We're going to be seeing 50s. Sault Ste. Marie, International Falls, and even here through portions of the Great Lakes along the St. Lawrence River Valley here, Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, we're going to be seeing those temperatures in the 60s as well. So Buffalo, 63, Detroit, 65, and Boston, 69 degrees. A little bit warm along the Atlantic coast, as I said, because of that Gulf breeze, the Gulf current down there. So we're going to be seeing those warmer temperatures because you have warmer water temperatures being piped up from the south. So that Gulf coast, that Gulf current right there is going to be taken. It's kind of funny. This is the Gulf of Mexico, but yet this is called the Gulf current. So, Amtrak has a train that goes along the eastern seaboard called the Gulf Breeze. It may have been canceled, but they used to have a train called the Gulf Breeze that went up the East Coast. But here's those warmer temperatures along the Gulf Coast. So San Antonio, Houston, New Orleans, over the Tampa, lower to mid 90s, upper 80s in Florida as they get prepared for the arrival of Hurricane Ian. You know what's interesting? Storms with the letter I tend to always affect the United States. We always get hit. We had a Nikki back in the 90s, back when Jurassic Park, the first one came out. When they filmed Jurassic Park, there was a tropical storm or a hurricane in the movie. Well, that storm was Tropical Storm Nikki that actually hit Hawaii back during the filming of that movie. They just incorporated it into the film. So Hurricane Nikki, you had Isaac. Remember, we had Isaac a few years ago. So these letter I storms do always seem to cause problems. We're going to be dealing with Ian next week by about Wednesday or Thursday, Florida. Please be prepared for that. They haven't posted any tropical warnings yet because the track is still uncertain. It's still dancing around, and we're going to look at all of that here in just a bit. Excuse me. We're going to look at the storm track for Tropical Storm Ian, soon to be. It'll probably end up being upgraded to a hurricane either tonight or tomorrow morning because it's intensifying rapidly. It's very rapidly intensifying. This is this situation that's developing down near Florida is going to be very dangerous. It's going to be their first interaction with a tropical storm, a bona fide hurricane since Hurricane Michael back in 2019, I think it was. And Michael was a Category 5 hurricane. Michael was huge. That was a big deal. And Ian, I think, won't be a major hurricane when it makes landfall. It could be a Category 2, but it will exist as a major hurricane out over the Gulf as it comes up. but it will weaken slightly, at least according to the current models, which we're going to look at. So here's tonight's overnight low temperatures. It's starting to get cool out there, guys. Might want to start looking for your jacket, your fall jacket right now. We're not ready for winter coats, but look at those northern plains, Minnesota. Look at the Dakotas, the 40s. Look at the Montana, overnight lows in the mid 40s. So we're seeing it cool down in the overnight hours. We're seeing overnight lows in the 50s in portions of the Northeast, and we're seeing a lot of 50s across the central and northern Rockies. So Salt Lake City, Denver, you might want to get your fall jackets out, as well as in Seattle and Portland. We're seeing those cooler temperatures, and the Bay Area in northern and central California. You want to get ready for those cooler overnight temperatures tonight. All right, so here we are as we take a look at our expected rainfall and thunderstorms here for the next 48 hours. And we are going to be seeing some thunderstorms here along the Appalachian Mountain Range. We're going to take our cursor over that so you can see that. See those thunderstorms there in the Appalachians. And we could deal with some thunderstorms here in the southeastern Arizona and southwestern New Mexico. And this is going to be very isolated, just a little bit, maybe a few storms, not a whole lot going on here. We see a little bit more in the way of persistent storms because our frontal boundary is going to be the trigger for thunderstorms. And if there is a short wave of low pressure or a short wave or piece of energy that develops and hangs out around our front, it could enhance any thunderstorm activity that we do see over the mountains. And the mountains tend to naturally enhance rainfall amounts as it is because of what's called orographic lifting. Is that lifting because the air moving over the mountains gets lifted up over the mountains. So thunderstorms develop. They tend to have enhanced rainfall. So you could be seeing that. And you'll be dealing with those thunderstorms through California, through the Appalachians, so Kentucky, Tennessee, eastern sections of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and portions of West Virginia, as well as southern Ohio, southeastern Indiana, and far southern Illinois. And that is the Appalachian Mountain region there. And we're talking about Lexington, Louisville, Evansville, Indiana. So these regions, Charleston, West Virginia, Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock, Jackson, Mississippi, going to be dealing with the chance for those showers and thunderstorms. And this is also where some of our severe weather can take place as well over the next few days. So we are going to click down here. All right, let's go through. Now let's go into our severe weather outlook. All right, here's our surface map for this afternoon. Here is our big front here, our very strong cold front that's moving through the Appalachian Mountain Range. There is our low pressure. It's a very nice, strong area of low pressure here. Our strong cold front. We have a short wave here in Arkansas and another piece of energy along the Red River near Wichita Falls, Kansas, and then another piece of the front that extends across the Four Corners, Arizona, and into the Las Vegas area. So from Vegas to Canada, this frontal boundary will have an impact on the weather. So we could see some monsoon storms here, and that frontal boundary in place across the Southwest will cause some of those storms to form because our front will kind of it's like a wave that's going to go back and forth. And every time that front either moves forward or backward, it's going to move the air, cause air to lift. As it moves back, cause the air to lift. So you can see thunderstorms in that activity because the front is just not just sitting there. It's some type of movement. It's considered a stationary front on that end because it's generally in the same place, but it is a little bit of fluctuations in the movement of the front. And those fluctuations can create disturbances in the atmosphere that will lead to some thunderstorms to develop. So we're going to see a few thunderstorms through southern Arizona, southern New Mexico. We can see some across western Texas, as well as northern Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, Wichita Falls, Muskogee, Oklahoma. That front's going to be going through that region as well, through central Arkansas. So Little Rock can pick up a stray shower or thunderstorm, and then through Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and then it's going to cross the Canadian border, and we're going to hit Toronto and Montreal and Quebec City. Could be seeing rain showers in that region where the air is much cooler. And then behind the front, you see those isobars. You see these lines right here. And if you can see these lines, you can see that's that cooler air coming down out of Canada. And in this cool air, there are showers embedded in that cool air. So if you're in Wisconsin and Michigan, you're going to be dealing with what we dealt with yesterday in Minnesota. It's going to be cool, kind of cold, breezy, and showery. It's not going to amount to much, very light rain, but it's going to be a nuisance, kind of a nuisance rainfall. It's going to be just enough to keep the area wet. It's going to just stay wet. It's gross. It's not. It wasn't fun, but we were out trying to do things yesterday, and you have this drizzly rain that just kept coming. It wouldn't stop. They were off and on all day. But you see now as you move to the west, those isobars kind of widen out a little bit. So you're going to lose that wind. Those tighter isobars means that the wind is stronger. If you see a wider isobars, the wind is weaker. Okay, so drop in the winds toward the west through the western sections of the Dakotas and into Montana, Wyoming. They are underneath that dome of high pressure. So this central high pressure is going to be making very nice conditions through the northern Rockies and the high plains. Temperatures in the 70s, very pleasant, calm conditions, not a whole lot to worry about there. A beautiful period in the time frame here. So enjoy that. If you're in the Rockies, if you're in, like I said, good time to go to the national park, good time to go to Yellowstone, go to Glacier, go to the Grand Tetons, anywhere out west. Beautiful weather. Beautiful weather. Can't complain about the western states right now, but it's just going to be hot across the desert Southwest. But what's new with that? Okay. So that's our current status of the atmosphere in America right now. Now here is the forecast for the upper air pattern. We just looked at what's going on at the surface. Let's look at what's going on about 6 kilometers up above your head. So at 6 kilometers above your head, the 500 millibar that we call it, us meteorologists, it's the 500 millibar. This is indicating troughing on the east. And the reason why we call it troughing, because it looks like a dip. It looks like the air is going down. See how it's coming from here and going down. And you see how tight those isobars, that is the jet stream. So we have a very powerful jet stream diving into the mid-Atlantic states. It's diving into Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina. So we see a very strong jet stream. This is also going to be our energy for severe weather. So a very strong jet stream. This is a classic La Nina jet stream. This is the pattern that we sat through the entire winter and spring. This gave us those stupid Alberta Clippers. I I love and hate these things at the same time because they come every day and a half. So you get about 12 to 18 hours between these Alberta clippers because they fly down in that northwesterly current coming down over the ridge. The storms come off of the Pacific. They ride over the top of the ridge in the west through the Rockies. They ride over the top of the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains drain them of any moisture that they have. So when they get to the leeward side of the Rocky Mountains and they drop down, they slide down from the Canadian provinces, from Alberta, Manitoba, they drop into North and South Dakota and Minnesota. They drop in relatively dry. They squeeze out whatever moisture is in the atmosphere over us. They squeeze out whatever moisture, and all they really do is bring a lot of wind, so they make it really cold. It'll warm up briefly. You'll have in January, oh, it's 30 today. You're like, oh, wonderful. But you're really in the trap, the warm air advection out ahead of this fast-moving area of low pressure. They call that Chinook winds. You know, if you live in the Midwest, the Northern Plains, you'll hear the word Chinook. Those winds out ahead are called Chinook winds. And when that front passes, then it changes behind from the southwest to the northwest. So then you get those northerly winds, and then it's cold. It's like, in Minnesota, that's what makes the winter so brutal. That cold air that comes in behind the Alberta Clippers. Good grief, because they come down out of Alberta, Canada. That's why they're called Alberta Clippers. So you get that cold air, and it's brutal. That's why they say don't come to Minnesota in the winter. So you'll see that from Minnesota through Wisconsin, Michigan, over through across the Great Lakes to the northeast. So here we are. This is that pattern. This is the pattern I expect to see through winter. Now, the long-range forecasts are saying that La Nina is going to begin to diminish in December. So from December to March, we're going to start to lose La Nina. It's going to weaken to INSO neutral. La Nina is something that occurs over the Central Pacific. The Pacific Ocean, the waters over the Pacific Ocean during La Nina along the eastern Pacific near Ecuador, and the South America. Those water temperatures at the equator are below average, and those cooler waters change the weather patterns, and it causes high pressure to build over the Central Pacific, the North Central Pacific, and the northwestern U.S. And that high pressure will steer those storms toward the trough that builds in on the East Coast. And that troughing on the eastern side here, this troughing is associated with what we call the polar vortex. Now, it's not the main polar vortex, but it's a piece of the polar vortex. Y'all getting a real meteorology lesson here today. We're not playing no games. So we have this situation where we have this very cold air that's coming down out of Canada. We have a semi-stationary area of low pressure in place, and it has impulses of low pressure, satellite low pressure that kind of zip across the area. And those are the pieces that we deal with primarily here in the U.S. So this is that beginning of that pattern that we're likely to experience this year. So here is what tomorrow's okay, here on. So we have it. We were supposed to have this 3 of these, but I guess not. Yeah, okay. All right, so this is that pattern that we're going to be dealing with for this week. Pretty much the whole week. This is what this map should look like. All right, here's our severe weather. Now, what's going to make that severe weather is that drop down. You see how this energy right here, I wish I had a way to highlight this. There is, but it's just, This right here, if you can see this, where my cursor is going, this is where our severe weather is going to be today. All right. So that energy that's coming down out of Canada is punching behind that front. So it's providing energy into that front. So we're going to see severe thunderstorms through portions of southeastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Connecticut, as well as West Virginia, and Maryland. So DC, Philly, New York City, all the way up to Providence, we could have a slight risk of severe weather. A slight risk of severe weather. This is scattered severe thunderstorms. The primary threat today is going to be gusty winds. It's definitely going to produce some gusty winds, some heavy rain, and we could be dealing with some small hail. And we're talking hail from the size of grains of sand, little pebbles, to dime-sized hail. So we got a pretty good range of sizes for hail. But we're definitely going to be dealing with some small hail and some gusty winds. And I'm not going to be surprised to hear about a very small tornado spin up. An isolated tornado could also be possible. So we could see a spin up. And one reason why I think we could see a tornado is because of those strong winds and that wind shear. The shearing is going to be very strong with this system for this time of the year. So we have so we got like 70 knot wind shear coming in the mid levels. So we could definitely see some weak tornadoes spin up, maybe some land spouts. There are tornadoes, but they're not really associated with a mesosphere, or you don't see the wall cloud hanging down. But these are the kinds that typically tend to be rain wrapped, and you can't really identify them. You can know they're there, you can experience them, but you can't really see them because they don't really come with a clear funnel like you would normally see with like a summer or early spring severe thunderstorm when you have the really bad ones. These are going to be F0 to maybe F1 size speed tornadoes. They're going to be very weak tornadoes. So that's that potential that we're going to be seeing today on the East Coast. All right, here's tomorrow. No severe weather expected Monday. A lot of our energy is going to head on off the Atlantic tomorrow, and our center of circulation is going to quickly, because it has already turned the base of the trough. And once they turn the base of the trough, they shoot out. So it's going to quickly move off to the northeast. So we're going to be just left with scattered, again, more of those scattered showers in the northeast. And our frontal boundary here, the tail end of the front, and we're only going to be seeing some isolated thunderstorms along the lower end of our front here across the southeast, the Gulf Coast, southern Texas, and into the Four Corners, where we still have stubborn monsoon moisture to play with down there. But again, that's going to be very isolated to widely scattered. And that's the same thing. Now, Florida, we can see an increase in the amount of thunderstorms because we have influence from our hurricane. And I'm going to say hurricane because by tomorrow, we will have that hurricane to worry about. So the hurricane will have influence on Florida's weather before the hurricane even makes landfall. All right, so now for Tuesday, you see the dark green over Florida? Now, Florida, we get the darker green, and that dark green is that marginal risk. That's going to be because of heavy rainfall. Tropical systems tend to be efficient rainfall producers because they have a lot of moisture. And what we're going to be seeing on Florida is feeder bands from our hurricane going across southern Florida and the Florida Keys and the Florida Straits. As our hurricane spins, the feeder bands that are inflow into the hurricane will be crossing over Florida. So we're going to be seeing those thunderstorms. And some of those can produce tornadoes. That's where you can see, when you see tornadoes with hurricanes, it's in the feeder bands on the outer edges of the storm. So those outer feeder bands is where we're going to be seeing a lot of thunderstorms and severe weather. So that is something we're going to be watching for on Tuesday, and the potential for water spouts coming off of the ocean. These are not going to be land-based tornadoes. Most of them will form as water spouts, and they will come on shore and change to land spouts. So that's going to be something that could be an issue for Tuesday down in Florida. All right, so here's our tropical outlook. All right, here we go. Okay, here is the big picture of the Atlantic. We have this yellow guy here, this yellow guy there. He is a tropical wave. That is tropical invest 99L. So that is 99L latitude. That's why there's an L, because of where it is at the 99th longitude, and also at the 16 north parallel. In meteorology, we use longitude and latitude and parallel. We use the grid. We go by the grid in geography. If you had your geography in school, you know what that is. Here is Tropical Storm Gaston, which was at one point a Category 3 hurricane. So it was a major hurricane, but it was out there over the north central Atlantic, didn't bother anybody. Fiona did hit Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland in Canada, but she is no more. She's on her way. What's left of it is on its way to Greenland. So no more Fiona. Now we have our big boy, Ian. Ian is currently just south of Cuba and Jamaica. And we have, this is a very strong tropical storm, rapidly developing, will probably be a hurricane within the next 24 hours, will be a hurricane, and will be a major hurricane when it enters the Gulf of Mexico. All right, here is the Pacific. Here is Mexico, Baja California. There is Southern California. Tropical Storm Newton. Well, it's post-Tropical Storm Newton. So it's not a depression anymore. It just was a tropical cyclone. Now it's the remnants of Tropical Storm Newton. Now it's just a swirling mass of clouds and rain. No wind associated with it. And it's moving off to the west. Not going to bother anybody. So that's it for Newton. But let's talk about our big boy. Here is our problem here. We have hurricane warnings already posted across western Cuba. We have hurricane posted for Jamaica, and we have no warnings yet for Florida, because the models are still all over the place with where this thing is going to go. So there it is, going to come up into the Florida Straits, and it may cross western Cuba. So when it crosses western Cuba, it's going to interact with the landmass, so that could cause it to weaken a little bit. So it could weaken slightly, but it's going to remain major hurricane status. It is going to be a major hurricane that's Category 3. Category 3 starts at 115 miles per hour to about 135 miles per hour, and then it will be Category 4. So it will be Category 3, Category 4, maybe Category 5. It has it from 8 a.m. Tuesday to 8 a.m. Wednesday. So about 24-hour period as a major hurricane. But you can see, according to this chart, it's going to weaken down to a regular hurricane. So that's Category 1, Category 2. Hurricane begins at 75 miles per hour. Tropical hurricane Category 2 is up to 115, from 100 to 115 miles per hour. We're going to be looking at Category 2 hurricane. I think I'm going to give it a strong Category 2 when it makes landfall on the Florida Peninsula. Or it's going to be right at the cup of the Florida Peninsula and the Panhandle. It's going to be right in the boot, right in that slip right there. And I think it will be a strong category 2, maybe 3. It can still possibly be 3. There's a little pool of cooler waters right there that could lead to some weakening, but it's going to depend on how fast Ian is moving as to where it can overcome that deficiency. But the speed of the hurricane is going to make a huge difference in the strength of it when it comes on shore. There is a look of it on the satellite, a beautiful rotation. We got a nice spin in the atmosphere here, a good inflow. Still got a little bit of shear that is dealing with. You see all of this off to the east there. So there's a little bit of shear, but it's a really strong inflow right here coming from the south. So we got good inflow from the south, another good area of inflow from the north and west here as we really kind of see it take shape here. A rapidly intensifying tropical system. So Ian is going to be something that we will have to worry about, especially Cuba and Florida. So there it is as Ian starts to really wrap up, and I'm starting to see good outflow as well. And outflow occurs at the top of the storm as the inflow at the surface. It actually goes counterclockwise at the outflow because it's high pressure above the storm. So the winds go like it would around high pressure. You see the counterclockwise flow of low pressure at the surface, but a clockwise flow at the outflow of the storm at the top. So there we are. We see it starting to take place there. Here is where it is. Or the low pressure center is right here. There is Nicaragua and El Salvador there. And there is Jamaica and there is Cuba. So here we are. Here it is with South America there. And it's moving off to the north and northwest there. And that's where it currently sits. Here we are. Here is the GEFS. This is a forecast ensemble of different models. And they kind of put them all together and look at the range. So it's giving it a range that it could come on shore, Tampa, St. Petersburg, all the way over to New Orleans. So that's a very large area, several hundred miles that it has an area to play with that potential for it to make landfall. It can may go all the way to New Orleans or Tampa, St. Petersburg, at least according to this chart. And this here is going to be our storm speed. We are currently looking at 1,004 millibars. So it's the pressure is about even. If you would say our 1,000 is our median pressure. So it's just slightly above, but it is expected to drop down to a 994. So that indicates intensification. So 994 in 24 hours, and then 977 in 48 hours. So we go from 1,000 millibars to 977. Definitely intensification, rapid intensification in the next 48 hours. And then the next 72. So then we have the next one will be 96 hours. That's about 4 days. So 24, 48, 72, then 96. So we got 96 hours, 976. So now it's only very slight intensification from that point. But then 144 hours, then it goes back up to 1,000 millibars. But it came on shore by then. So naturally, hurricanes weaken when they make landfall because they are ocean-borne storms. So they only survive over the ocean. When they come on land, they weaken. And this guy is going to be no different unless we got a magic hurricane we don't know about yet. But that guy is going to come on shore. And this chart shows that main influx right there around Pensacola, Florida. And Pensacola is a vacation spot. So we don't want to see hurricanes coming on shore right there. There's a guy I follow on TikTok. His handle is Oh My God, it's Wix. And check him out if you're on TikTok. OMG, it's Wix. He's a comedian down in Florida, and he always talks about they have hurricane parties. They're going to be having a lot of hurricane parties in Florida. I advise them not to do so, but we know what they're going to do, and it's going to go down in Florida. Because Floridians are the most dangerous thing in Florida. Not the alligators, it's not no wildlife, it's the Floridians that are the most. And that's out of his own mouth. He said, what's the most dangerous animal in Florida? It's Floridians. So he's pretty funny with that stuff. But anyway, there is our problem child right there that this chart thinks is going to come on shore over the Florida panhandle there. All right, so here's we're going to talk about this forecast chart here. And this is for your Sunday afternoon. And there is our severe weather here through portions of Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and along some of the big cities here. So just north of D.C. through about Hartford, Connecticut, we could be dealing with some severe weather this afternoon. Showers and thunderstorms from New Brunswick, Canada, all the way down the eastern seaboard, down through the Appalachians to the Gulf Coast, across the state of Texas, and down to the southwestern deserts of Arizona and the white sands of New Mexico there. So the I-10 corridor could be dealing with some severe thunderstorms. I-10, I-20, I-30, and we then got I-49 through Louisiana and I-40 through Tennessee. So we're going to be dealing with those showers. Now this area here, behind our area of low pressure right there, now the Great Lakes, this is that cool, moist, damp air with those scattered showers. There's not going to be any thunderstorms in this. This chart shows thunderstorms. We didn't see any thunderstorms, and we had this very same area over Minnesota. Now, there may be one, but this is not how it be. This is not what this is. I know what pattern this is. This is not conducive for thunderstorms behind this area of low pressure. This is going to be cold and damp, windy and dreary. Very dreary. But then it's going to end up like it is today, beautiful across Minnesota and the Dakotas. And we have this secondary weak front here across the northern Rockies. No precipitation expected with this guy. All that's going to do is affect your temperature and the direction that the wind is blowing. That's it. And we can see a thunderstorm across portions of Colorado and New Mexico as well here, but that's that leftover monsoon moisture. And there is a weak trough right in this area as well that could help trigger storms in this guy. And then we have our thermal low across the southwest. Now, this thermal low that's usually sit here in the summer and when the warm occurs because of hot air in the southwest, and that hot air wants to rise. So it causes the air pressure to lower because that air is rising. So it's lifting up off your shoulders. As if it was cooler air, it would drop down. You feel the air. The air feels heavier when it's colder, right? Do you think so? Do you agree that it sometimes feels cold? When it's colder, the air feels heavier. Well, is when the air warms up, it lifts. So we get that thermal area of low pressure. Now, what you see with that is dust devils. You remember how you go out and you see videos of the dust devils picking up paper, making stuff fly around? That's what you see because of the thermal low in the southwest. Arizona, Southern California, Southern Nevada, Las Vegas, famous for dust devils. There you go. That's how you get them. All right, so tomorrow's forecast. Our front on the East Coast, our big front. This is a very strong cold front because south of the front, it can be as warm as in the 90s. But behind the front, 50s and 60s. It is what? This is a real cold front, guys. A real bona fide cold front. Everybody in Texas is like, oh, God, thank you. A bona fide cold front for everybody on the eastern and across the southeast. It's going to drop your humidities way down. Huge drop in humidity, temperatures. We're going to still see it warm across Texas because it's Texas and it's the Gulf Coast. It's just warm. It's hotter. The sun angles are different down there. So we're going to see temperatures, the 70s, right? You'll see 70s, but you're not going to be dealing with 90s and humidity. So it's going to be much better for you, and we appreciate that. But it's going to be kind of cold across the northern tier of the nation. So the Great Lakes, the Northeast, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, Montana, it's going to feel a little bit on the nippy side from time to time behind this front. And there's another front that's going to drop down out of Canada, this guy here, over the days to come. So it's going to reinforce that cooler air. So it might get even a little bit even colder across Wisconsin and Michigan. All right, see that? I know my stuff. I know this weather. Don't play with me. Don't play with me. All right, there's that front. Remember, secondary front? I just said it a second ago. If you were paying attention, you would have heard me say a secondary front. And there is that secondary front dropping down out of Canada, reinforcing shot of cold air. But look, see this? This in the Northeast, the interior portions of the Northeast, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, interior portions of Maine, cooler, colder, 50s, and showery. Breezy and showery. No thunder, no lightning, no severe weather. All right? Somebody said, thank you. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, guys. I'm glad some folks is watching. I'm just getting used to doing this, and I sometimes it's kind of sloppy. But I feel the vibe right now, so I'm on the roll. But thank you, guys. But that secondary front is going to reinforce that cooler air. So no heat in the near future at all for the Northeast. Beautiful, beautiful. Those leaves are changing colors now in the Northeast. It's not peak time yet. That comes in October, your peak time, because it relies on the sun position and sun angles. The sun angles tell the leaves when to fall. Some people are like, I know a couple of weeks ago, some people said, it's still 90 degrees, but the leaves are changing color. Well, they don't care about the temperature. The temperature makes absolutely no difference when the leaves change color. It's the sun angle in the sky. So as we move through the season and the sun gets lower in the sky from the noon hour, say when the summer equinox is right overhead when it goes over. Well, when we get into fall, it's about that 45-degree angle. So the sun angle is getting lower in the sky. That's what triggers the leaves to change. So you're going to be seeing the leaves change. But in October, the Northeast will peak, and you'll see the beautiful reds and oranges and golden browns and all that kind of stuff. So that's already taken place in the Northeast. So, but that cooler, breezy, showery weather, but it will be cooler. So the monsoon has been really stubborn this year. If anybody's in the Four Corners, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, a very persistent monsoon flow of moisture. And we're going to still see monsoon moisture on Tuesday. However, it's going to be very isolated, widely scattered. Not expecting any flash flooding, but a small flash flood can happen, but we're not expecting widespread issues with flooding with that moisture across the Southwest. But some afternoon thunderstorms can occur down there on Tuesday. But everywhere else is going to be dry. Look how little rainfall there is. We have our hurricane conditions down here in Florida. See, look at this. Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian will be between the Yucatan Peninsula and Cuba when Tuesday comes. Going to be a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, coming into the Gulf of Mexico. We can see flash flooding over Florida because those outer bands of the hurricane will be affecting Florida before the hurricane makes landfall. Even though it's not going to make landfall in southern Florida, it's going to affect the entire state of Florida. Everybody in Florida is going to get at least some rainfall and gusty winds. You're going to see thunderstorms, some severe weather as well, but that severe weather happens in the outer bands. You don't see, you won't see the severe weather, at least that classic severe weather, near the center of the hurricane. You don't really even see lightning in the center of a hurricane. You just see a lot of wind and heavy, heavy rain. That is the most unbelievable rain you can ever experience. You will drown in the rain. Just you can't breathe out. 100+ mile an hour winds blowing against your face, it'll blow the air right back down your throat. You won't even be able to exhale blowing into the wind of a hurricane, of this type of hurricane, a major category 3 or stronger hurricane. So again, Florida, please get prepared now. Get ready now. I don't care if you're in Miami, you're in Jacksonville, if you're in Pensacola, Tallahassee, you are in Davie, if you're in St. Augustine, if you are in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Orlando, Kissimmee, if you are in the state of Florida and within the sound of my voice, no hurricane parties. Don't listen to Wicks and don't have no parties. Get prepared, do what you need to do, get you some supplies, because even though the hurricane may not make direct landfall, it's going to be close to you and you will experience hurricane force winds because it's going to be a pretty wide storm as well. So that is all that I have regarding the hurricane and that forecast. But we do want to I'm going to bring this over to my other screen so I can look at some things right now. And before we go, we want to take a look at some of my cool sources that I use for forecasting weather. I have a lot of these websites. You see all these websites? This is websites that are full of meteorological data. We're going to look at the National Weather Service. It's one of my favorite websites that I use. And hopefully one day they will be my employer as well, the National Weather Service, when I finish my education. And we are going to look at our forecast maps. And I want to look at our long range weather forecast. And what I want to look at is going to be, actually it's right here. It's going to be under this drop down, but here's our long range weather forecast. I want to look at what they think is going to be the fall that we're going to have, okay? And I'm going to correlate this to the map we saw earlier in my forecast, where you saw that when all those isobars dive into the south toward the northeastern section of the U.S. Because, all right, so here's their 3-month outlook. Here's the temperature outlook. All right, here's our fall, October, November, December of 2022. This is a seasonal temperature outlook. And what it has, it is reflecting that La Nina pattern still. That La Nina pattern still continues. Above average temperatures out west is going to be, now here's our chart. This shows a 50 to 60%. So we're looking at a 50 to 60% chance of being above average for the fall season in Texas here, portions of Wyoming or Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. So the Four Corners and Texas, we have a good chance of it likely, this is likely being or near, likely, because 60% is likely. Because when we say rain likely, we mean 60% chance or greater. All right. So we have a 50 to 60% chance of above average for this fall in the Four Corners in Texas. Now we are going to lean above average for California, Nevada, the Central Rockies, down through the Ozarks. So we have, and the lower Mississippi Valley, the Gulf Coast, and into the mid-Mississippi state, the mid-South, the mid-Atlantic, and into portions of the Northeast, the interior or Northeast. We are going to lean above average. But then we have another area here in the Northeast itself, around Boston, the coastal Maine, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, where we are going to be likely above average, again, above average temperatures. That's that southerly flow, the Gulf Stream current off of the Atlantic, and we're going to be seeing that potential for the above average temperatures in the Northeast, in the New England states. We're going to specify New England. Then we have an area where we can see a less than 30% chance, a slight chance to a chance of being above average. That's Northern California, portions of Southern Oregon, Central Idaho, the northern half of Wyoming, through the Central Plains, the Northern Plains, and over into the Great Lakes. We have about a 30% chance or less of being above average. Now, equal chances in Minnesota and the far northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. Now, equal chances mean you can go either way. The model couldn't determine. There's nothing there that tells the models that, oh, it's going to be above average or below average. You can go through periods of either one. It can be average, it can be above average, or below average. You're going to have equal opportunities to see all of that. So anything can happen across the northern plains. So that's the temperatures for your fall, okay? Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to see warm-ups in places where it could be cooler. You're going to see warm-ups ahead of fronts and things like that. And you're going to have periods where it could be cooler than average in the Southwest. It's going to depend on individual situations. But this is looking at the general pattern. What's it going to be overall? What's the general outlook? It doesn't mean that specific things cannot happen during that period, but this is generally what you're going to deal with. Okay, so now let's take a look at the precipitation. Now let's look at the precipitation. Okay, so precipitation. All right, here's our seasonal for October, November, December 22. So this takes us into winter. All right. We see above average potential for rainfall across the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. We see a 50% chance of likely above average in the area around Glacier National Park and northern Idaho. But then around that, in lighter green, we see it leaning above average from the Pacific Northwest through the high plains of Montana. So the western high plains of Montana. So this is Shelby and Billings, Montana. That area where we can see it lean above average, and north of Boise, Idaho, lean above average. Equal chances across the Northeast and the Great Lakes, the Northern Plains, and through Central California and the Central Rockies. We have equal chances of average or below average precipitation. But look at the South. Poor folks in Texas, below average, primarily across Texas and New Mexico, southern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, southwestern Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and southwestern Alabama. And lean drier than average across the entire southeast and the southwest over into California, southern California. So a drier than average. Texas really needs the rainfall. And even though they had a period in August and early September where they saw a lot of rainfall, they still need more rainfall. Let's look at the drought. Here is the drought monitor. All right, here's our seasonal outlook for fall. All right, from September 15th through the end of December. This dark brown is extreme drought. See that? The extreme drought is going to continue in California, Nevada, Utah, right? But look at this. Look across the desert, Arizona here. Check this out. Can we make this bigger? No, I guess it'll only go bigger so much. But look at this. Look at this. It's no drought conditions because they got a lot of monsoon. The monsoon broke the drought across Arizona, these portions of Arizona, because of a heavy monsoon. A lot of flash flooding, whole lot of rain in this region this summer. But unfortunately, that was a fluke. That was a fluke. That's not going to hold. The drought conditions will come back because once they lose any influence of the monsoon, it's going to go back to being dry again, and you're going to have to rely on storm systems that come onto the West Coast. And if you can get one that drops down far south enough and a front passes through that can bring a little rainfall across the deserts, then that's the only way. But I don't think that's going to hold. But it is relief for now from the drought. But you see that yellow through portions of Colorado. You see it in Kansas. You see that yellow. That means that the drought development is likely, right? They should have included it in Arizona as well, because that drought condition will come back. That's not a permanent. The monsoon is not a permanent solution to the drought. A good monsoon helps, but you need your yearly rainfall. That monsoon have to surpass your yearly rainfall and put you above average for your yearly rainfall in order for that to hold. And it's highly possible that that did happen. That is highly possible because I saw a lot of monsoon storms in the Southwest this year. But we're going to see those drought conditions can return across West Texas because they saw a lot of relief in West Texas as well from the monsoon. And South Texas, along the Gulf Coast, they saw a lot of relief from heavy rain along the Gulf Coast. But unfortunately, that was just temporary. That northwesterly flow, again, is going to come back because that air is going to blow across the leeward side of the Rockies and blow from the north to the south. So we're looking at another cold winter across Texas, the Plains states, and we're looking at opportunities for another snowy, cold winter. It's going to be mostly like last winter. You will see a repeat of last winter. It may not be as extreme because La Nina is expected to weaken. But the thing about La Nina and those things like that, La Nina, El Nino, those types of things, is that there is a delay in the symptoms. It's like when you get a cold and you start to break the cold, you still have symptoms until they go away. Same thing happens with the weather. You're going to see La Nina symptoms even though La Nina is broken. But eventually, that delay, you have to wait for those teleconnections to clear up or finish up before you can see a change in the overall pattern. And then whatever large-scale event elsewhere, because usually something that's happening elsewhere that's going to affect our weather pattern, you have to wait and see what the next large-scale event that's going to be taking place that will affect our pattern, whether it be climate change or the polar vortex or some other anomaly taking place that has a direct impact on U.S. weather. So that was a look at some of our long-range outlook and things like that. So I think I'm going to wrap this up, guys. I appreciate that I saw at least 12 or 13 people on. We're going to do this slow by slow, and every week we're going to try to do one of these. But that was fun. I had a good time, and I hope you guys did too. Thank you for watching me, guys, and we'll be back next week. And stay tuned for your regular forecast that we'll be posting that later tonight. Well, actually, this video here could serve as today's forecast because it will save as a video on YouTube that you can go, because this is on YouTube and Facebook, and you can go on YouTube and watch the replay. And I think Facebook actually saves it as well. So good. This is your forecast. And this will get you started into. I'm a full-time student. and I work for Uncle Sam, so I have a full-time job. So it's kind of hard to do these every day. But now that, when I was out over the summer, I had more time to do forecasts every day. But now it's a little bit difficult because I have, my school schedule back. But when things like the hurricane, I will make special videos tracking stuff like that. And then I will get you at least 3 forecasts for the week. Your beginning of the week, a midweek, and a weekend forecast. I can promise you that. But I won't be able to do it a regular forecast every single day. But if you do want to see an everyday forecast, TikTok. Follow Mr. G Weather on TikTok. Every day because it's easier and quicker. It's only a couple minutes long, so I can do a TikTok for you. I can do a video for TikTok every day. YouTube wants you editing, and it takes a long time to prep the video and record it and edit it. YouTube is a lot of work, and nobody watches anyway. But I'm killing it on TikTok. I tell you that. I love TikTok. So, but anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you. Got nothing but love for you. See y'all in the next live video, and watch for your weekly forecasts as well. Bye-bye, guys. Have a good rest of your Sunday and a good start to your work week ahead.